All right, last one. Uh, Pinky promise. Spit shake? I don't know. What started before America even entered the war? What started in 1940? Ooh, talking too fast. The draft, military draft. So President Roosevelt looked at our military and said, "Whoa, we need a bigger military." So we drafted 1 million dudes between the ages of 21 and 35. A lot of guys. Not enough, but a good start. So we drafted 1 million people. If you don't know what the draft is, basically, if you're within the ages of 21 and 35, everybody has a number, and different drafts work in different ways. But if your number gets called, you have to join the military. It's as simple as that, or the government comes and hunts you down. Not very pleasant. Okay, but that's how it is. That's how it works. So that's what we started. Something else that develops at this time. Britain has run out of money. Well, so they can't do cash in a care anymore because they've run out of cash. So President Roosevelt says, let's start the Lend-Lease program. It's called Lend-Lease. The idea is if Britain can't buy it, we will lend them what they need, okay, or lease it out. And so FDR says, we will lend arms and money to any country whose defense is vital to the United States. If defending your country is important to our safety, we'll help you out. Okay? Eventually, America gives $50 billion to worth of military equipment. $50 million worth of military equipment to Britain and Russia before the war's over. That's a lot of stuff. Okay? We have one more chunk, the Atlantic Charter, and that has the last two questions. But first, I want to tell you this real quick. During a fireside chat, President Roosevelt comes on the radio and talks about Lend-Lease, and he explains it by using a story about a neighbor's house catching on fire. And he says, if your neighbor's house catches on fire, it's going to take a while for the fire department to get there. So while you're waiting on the fire department, if your neighbor comes over and asks to borrow your hose, your garden hose to put out the fire, you lend it to him, unless you're a jerk or weird. You lend your friend, your neighbor, the garden hose. And, maybe he can fight the fire a little bit, depends on how big it is, obviously, until the fire department gets there and puts it out. You're not going to worry about getting your garden hose back until after the fire's done. After it's done. And then you'll settle accounts. So you'll go over to the neighbor, hey, you have my garden hose, I need to, water my petunias or something. And he says, yeah, I have it. It's fine. Look at that, no damage. And if there's no damage to the hose, sweet, I'll take it back. Glad I could help you out. I'll see you later. Let's say there's a hole that got melted in the hose because, a burning ember fell and melted its way through the hose. Well, in that case, the neighbor should buy you a new hose, right? Because you lent it to him and it got damaged in the process. So that's what Lend-Lease was all about. Let's say a tank. We loaned Russia a tank. And let's say Russia's going along doing its tank thing with our tank, and it goes fine. Like the tank gets a few bullet holes in it, but no big deal. Well, at the end of the war, Russia, the Russian welders weld some patches over those holes, give us our tank back, sweet, it's good as new, right? I mean, tanks are just big chunks of metal anyway, so putting a few welded pieces of metal on there, totally fine. Let's say, though, that tank is blown up. Well, we don't want a blown up tank back, so for that one, Russia would have to pay us. That's how Lend-Lease worked. If it's fine at the end of the war, we'll take it back. If you blow it up or break it or lose it or something, you need to pay us for that one. Okay, the Atlantic Charter, signed in August of 1941. Keep in mind, America gets attacked at Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. So this is a few months prior to that. And it's really fun. It's interesting to me that Winston Churchill, who is the Prime Minister of Britain, and Franklin Roosevelt, President of America, they have a powwow on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That's why it's called the Atlantic Charter, and it's top secret. And they basically say, this is why this war will be fought. So for Britain, it's still early on in the war. For America, remember, America hadn't officially entered the war yet. But I think everybody in America knew, dude, it's just a matter of time before we enter this thing. So these two leaders said, when this war really gets going, when America joins this war, these are the principles for which we will fight. And I'm just going to read them to you, short list. We will not seek new territory. We don't want to be imperialistic, okay? Number two, we don't want any territorial changes without the permission of the people living there. In other words, we don't want to change countries' boundaries unless the people living there say, hey, let's change these boundaries. Third, we want to respect the right of people to choose their own government. That one's interesting, especially considering, what happens 10, 15 years later in a little place called Vietnam. So that one's interesting. But again, that idea is we will respect the right of the people living in a place to choose their own government. Next, we're going to promote free trade, meaning we're going to get rid of tariffs. We want people to trade freely. Next, we want to encourage international cooperation. We just want to hold hands and sing and eat Skittles and chase the rainbow. Okay, we want to be good. Next, we want to build a secure peace based on freedom from want and fear. That sounds really cool. And last, we want to establish a permanent system of general security, which became the United Nations. Very much like the League of Nations. Some people like the League of Nations, some people didn't. Similarly, some people like the United Nations, other people don't. This Atlantic Charter was signed by 26 nations, including Russia and China. Okay? And that's, again, the Atlantic Charter was all about these are the reasons why we will fight this war. Okay? I hope that's helpful. If you have questions, shoot me a text on Remind or send me an email. I will respond. I'm not going to promise that I'll respond immediately, pronto, quick, but I'll respond pretty quick. Hope you're doing well. Talk to you later.